This screencast is going to be about the sweater line sheet. And just looking at some of your files and seeing where the problems were, I thought it would be great to just kind of go over some of the issues and just review it one more time. So this one is looking pretty goofy, not really working really well. The images have been placed in the image frames. The image frames have a little stroked frame. The type is all got overset and needs to be styled and fit. In other words, it needs to fit within the boxes. And we have some alignment issues in terms of things being just kind of out of whack. So I want you to get out of the mode, get out of the preview mode by hitting the W key so that we do see our non-printing margins and image frames, etc., etc. It's a much better way to work. I know it looks a little bit more confusing, but it's going to be much more accurate when you work on these things. I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can. All the sweaters have been placed. I think they're in order. I'm not going to worry about that. But I am going to look at my links panel. My links panel looks great, except for there is one image that has a question mark. And it actually has a question mark on the file as well, and that is that Gucci logo. So what's worrying me is if I click on, I'm looking at the Gucci logo, and then I look, and if you don't see this, you just open up this little triangle. I'm looking at the information about that file, and I'm saying, oh, it's not the correct one. So I'm thinking that I've actually got the wrong one. I need to relink to the correct logo. To relink something, if you see that there's a question mark, it means it's double click. Oh, you can actually double click on the question mark as well, or go to the chain link. Let's go to this. It brings open a box that's saying, okay, if you look up here, it says locate, and it's telling you what the file name that it wants to find is. That's super great. Now, because I just did this a minute ago, I'm going to go out and I'm going to see where my files are, and I'm looking and I'm seeing the Gucci logo TIFF. And because it's a TIFF, that tells me that it's a Photoshop file, and I have a feeling it's a better resolution. So I'm going to say open. And voila, no more exclamation mark. It's got no exclamation mark there, and we're good to go on that file. So the links panel is really important. You want to always make sure that there are no concerns here. Let's move on to some of these images. So when you place an image, most of you got the image placed and scaled slightly, but a lot of you are not scaling properly. By scaling, that means sizing the image within the image frame. So it's just taking the Photoshop file that I think perhaps we all did them at about 3 inches by 3 inches, and bringing them in so that they fit within the frame consistently and nicely, and they're not distorted. So when you want to do that, you want to either get in your white arrow tool, or if you're in your black arrow tool and you click on the donut, whatever it is, you're going to get the brown bounding box. And the cursor is a hand. It is not what it is if we click away. I'm just going to show you one more time. If you click with the black arrow tool and you click on the frame itself, it is an arrow with a little frame. That tells you can move the box around, the actual frame around. It will not affect, it will just move the whole frame around with the image in it. If you want to deal with the image inside it, you either click on what I call the donut, notice the cursor's a hand. It's a brown bounding box, which is showing you, I'm gonna see if it can work today. Usually it shows, it's because it's only got a white background, it's not showing as much. In any case, click there with your hand, with either the black arrow or the white arrow, and you want to go up to the scaling proportions of the control panel up here. If you don't see the control panel, all panels come from the window, which I know you're not seeing on this video, but up at the very top where it says InDesign, File, Edit, Layout, Type, Object, Table, View, Window. Window, click on Window, It's a drop-down menu, and there is the option there for control. It's also giving you the keyboard shortcut of that is Option or Alt Command 6. In any case, I have to do it again. Command Option 6. It brings it up. And then we want to go to this proportion area. This is where we scale the images and where we want to be very careful to do it properly. So up in this control panel, it's telling us that the image inside is 3 inches by 3 inches. It's telling us the location of it. And it's saying, well, right now it is scaled at 100% because that's the default. This is the constrain proportions link, and you want to make sure that it is engaged, that it is on. So you click it so that you don't get that slash through. And now, let's say we want to go down 75%, and that's looking actually a little bit too small in my opinion. So I just simply go up into these little up or down arrows. You only have to go into one because it's all going to stay the same because it's proportionately scaling. And then you take you're still got it selected, you're going to take your little cursor and you're going to move it around so that it's nicely centered in the box. Bingo, we're done. Now each one of these images, they're all coming in at 100%, but they haven't all been photographed at the same time. So you have to really kind of just do this as you wish. In other words, do this one by one. They're not all going to scale perfectly at the same proportion for this particular assignment. But you want them to look kind of consistent in terms of the white space around the frame itself. So if I put the W on, this one in fact might be still a little bit too big, but I'm going to bring it down so it has a little bit, kind of the same kind of space in between the collar and the top. Of course the sweaters are different shapes. I'm going to leave that for right now. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to go to 75% just because, see what that does. Doesn't look like that's enough at all. So I'm going to go and scale it down until I can kind of eyeball it and see how it looks. It's a kind of a wider sweater. Maybe I'll go down a little bit more, down to 65. And that's looking pretty good. And now I've got this crazy, my favorite sweater, the Gucci cat, I think is very funny. And I'm going to kind of move it more into the space. And I'm going to show you another technique. So this is one that perhaps you could just start with, which is kind of great. And that is it's called fitting. Again, you want to be selected with the white arrow tool. You want to have the direct selection of the image within the box. And we're going to not go to the percentage now. We're going to go up to the very, very top again, where it says Indesign, File, Edit, Layout, Type, Object. On Object, click down to where, and there's a drop-down menu to where it says Fitting. And then you're going to say Fill Frame Proportionately. And it's the first option. And we're going to do that. And it's doing exactly what it says. It's taking that picture. Now there's a lot of white space around the picture, and it's saying, I'm going to just fit this in the frame that I'm feeling, that you're in, proportionally. Not too bad. With this project, maybe we want to go up a little bit more in size, tiny bit, but that's at least getting me within the ballpark. Now, if we look at the second row here, where some very bad scaling has been done, let's say you're coming back to your file, you've had a cup of coffee and you're like, uh-oh, that doesn't look quite right. I'm clicking on this H sweater, the H0017 sweater, the future sweater, and it clearly doesn't look right. So click on it with your direct selection tool and go up to your scale. This is where you're going to notice the problems. This does not have the same numbers in both the up and down arrow fields, and they need to both be the same number. So the way to fix this is to simply take whichever one you want. I'm going to go to this one, and I'm going to make sure that my link is intact, and I'm going to go to 75%. It immediately makes both of those numbers the same, which is what I want. And then I've gotten it kind of close to the ballpark again. I could go in, make it a little bit bigger, position it perfectly so it's kind of centered. Same thing with this one. Woo! You can see that the numbers are wrong. In other words, it's 110% when it's going up and down. Oh, in this case, actually right and left. So it's squishing it, and it's even less high than it should be. Again, same thing. So go to, let's say we go to 90%. It's made both those numbers 90%. That's too big. I think 75 seems to be a bit of a good place to start on this one. And I'm just going to take it down a little bit and move it around. I think it's even smaller. So this is a difficult sweater because the sleeves are so long and it's kind of wacky. So even though I might be a little crazy, I might just cut off the sleeves slightly so that it looks a little bit like the other ones, okay? So that's the general idea, is that you just want to make sure, like let's say if we take this one now, it's completely out of whack, and we're going to go to fitting, and we're going to go to fill frame proportionally. What will it do? Well, what was cool is it made it proportionate right away. And then, and this sweater image is obviously a lot bigger than the others, we're going to take it down like so. And it's a little bit wider. Maybe we'll even make it a little bit bigger and let those sleeves kind of fall off. But the idea is that you want it to look consistent where the collar is, etc. All right, I'm going to stop the scaling. I think you guys get that point. But now we've got some images that are, all the boxes are kind of out of whack. And there's a bunch of them. And this is the stuff that you just have to look at carefully. So again, I just put the W on so I can see my guides. I actually had a guide here. If you don't have a guide, doesn't matter. I'm going to make it go away. With your selection tool, the black arrow tool, click on the edge of the frame and just move it around until you see those little smart guides. I'm going to zoom in and see if you guys can see it better on the video. But for instance, this one is really wacky, right? So I'm going to click on the frame and I'm moving it around. I know it wants to be on the margin and it wants to line up with the bottom. It's logical, you guys, and just let it go. And it's completely aligned now. The smart guides are very, very handy. So I'm going to go there. That one was tricky because there was a guide there and it was wondering what to do. And if you have a guide, you can always pull the guide away. And so now we've got all the boxes back to where they were with the step and repeat. I'm going to fix this guy also by going to Object, Fitting. And this one, again, there's the keyboard shortcut. It's a big one. So it's Command, Option, Shift, C. And it brings it in, and I can change that later. And I'm not going to deal with these guys either. But now let's move on to text. So the text, none of the text is fitting in its little boxes. And it's just been pasted right in there. And actually, I'm seeing that one of those text boxes needs to move to the right, to the left, rather. Whoops. Okay. So what I suggest you do is follow this mode. I'm going to just go into the first text box that I've got, that very first sweater. I'm putting the cursor anywhere. It's just kind of flashing away in the middle there. And I'm going to say Command A. And what that's doing is it's going to grab all of the type, including the type that's not fitting in the box. And I'm just going to see what happens when I change the size of the font and the leading that we have set. So right now it's at 12. I'm going to go down to 10. And I'm going to change the leading to 11. And maybe I'll change the leading to 10. Again, this is all stuff you guys have to figure out. It's a little bit of you have to kind of test it out and see what works and see what you think looks good. I don't want to use Minion Pro. I'm really sick of Minion Pro. It doesn't have any styles. Well, it has a few styles, but nothing I really like. So I'm going to change the font. And I'm going to change the font to Avenir. And there's a couple of different Avenirs. I'm going to grab the first one. You probably don't even have this one in your, you might not have it on your computer. And now I've got overset. So I'm actually going to take that little red valve, that overset valve, with my black arrow tool. I'm going to click on it and just drag out a little text box to the side. Now I have set it up where I'm seeing what's called the text box threads. So to see that, you go to View, up at the top again, right to the left of Window, and you go down to Extras, and you can either hide or show the text threads. So if I make it go away, you're not seeing anything. It's just the end of that word. But it's kind of cool if you don't know what's going on to just go and show the text threads. It doesn't it doesn't print, obviously. It's just one of those things. And if you want to turn it on and off really quickly, it is Option Command Y. So let's remember that. Option Command Y. And you can just toggle it on and off. Okay, so I'm thinking about this text. I'm thinking the way I want it to look. I'm thinking that this should all go to maybe 9. Well, let's see. I'm going to first take the number, the SKU number, and I'm going to make it much smaller. It still needs to be legible, so it shouldn't be much smaller than 8. But I'm going to make it 8. I'm keeping the leading at 10. And then I'm going to kind of scroll and get all of the rest of what is the fabrication information. So you guys know this it's the textile fabrication. And I'm going to make that a lot smaller. I'm going to make that 8. And that's now fitting in well. And now this, maybe I'll make this 9. And maybe I'll make this a different like a bolder font. See what happens. That's okay. It's working. I think that's kind of cool, but I'm not liking the way sweater is kind of breaking and then there's just ER. That's really bad type. So what you do with this case is you try to fix it. So I put in a return there. And then if you want sweater to go down to the next line, I would hit return. And maybe I don't mind that, or maybe I could make it look like that. So you need to actually mess a little bit up, if you can, with the way the text is actually forming. So what we know is we've got everything on 10 points of leading, which is down here. And the way this became blank and this became blank because we have different sizes and different fonts, different font styles. This is black. Maybe I'll make this medium. And maybe I'll make this italic, just to be... So in this font, you know what italic is. Oblique is the same thing as italic. It's just a different way of saying the same thing. Book is usually kind of the regular version of the type, and different fonts have different kind of styles that they call it. So now this is what I like, and I'm going to see if I can copy this now. If you can't remember what you did, you just select it, look up at your control panel to see what you've picked. And, ooh, I see a problem actually. I think I didn't grab the whole thing. Maybe I did. Let's see. I want to make sure that it's 9 point and it's both medium. For a minute there, that looked bigger. So you just look at what you've got. Okay, so let's go into this one, this next text box. Command A. I've put my cursor in the middle and I've gone to Command A. And I'm going to go straight to the new font that I've picked, which is Avenir up here. And I'll just pick Book. And I'm going to pick 10 to start with and 10 for the leading. And that gets me into the ballpark. Now I'm remembering that this was Book Oblique and it was 8. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to Book Oblique. And I'm going to go to 8. And then all this has for fabrication is 100% cotton. And I think that went down to 8. And it still stays at 10. And then the rest of it is going to be I think we picked medium. Did we pick medium? And let's see if I can't remember. It's medium 9. So it's medium, and I'm going to go to 9. And there we go. And it's fine that it doesn't take up, it's all lined up at the top, but it's not, it doesn't matter that this is not lined up at the bottom because there's more information on this one. And what you want to do is you just want to repeat that system. I'm going to hit the W key all the way through. What's important is that these line up and this lines up. This isn't as important, but it cannot hit, you don't want it to crash into the text box, or I mean the image box below. So if you have something where I'm not, well, maybe I don't want to spend a lot of time, but let's say your text boxes, I'll put the W's back on. Let's say for some reason the way your text is working, it's up, the text is crashing into the image frame. That's not good. You can see that that's not good. That's impossible to read. You want to pull it down. So what you want to do, if in that case, is you want to click out of preview. You want to grab, now these are different, I guess I better, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is you're going to grab by rubber banding it, I'm just pulling my cursor across, or you could shift click each text box, making sure not to get any of the image boxes. And I just use my keyboard arrow tool to bring it down exactly the same. So let's say it was here, and you want to bring it down. Remember in your head how many times you click the down arrow. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then if this was the same, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now those are different because we did different things to them. But that's the idea of it. I'm seeing this now, this text, this fabrication, I'm thinking that maybe it should go as an italic as well. So maybe I might make it book oblique, and maybe make this book oblique, just because I think it would look a little bit better. All right, so that's how you do the text, and that's the way you should really do the text all the way through. The best thing to do is kind of come up with a system and just figure out how it fits. If I'm going to continue to do one more, and then I'll stop talking, stop demoing. But this one, as I recall, this one is kind of a longer description. So again, Command A, it grabs everything, including the overset. Now, if you just selected manually, then you're not selecting the overset. So don't do it that way. Put your cursor in there till it flashes, Command or Control A to select all. We're going to change this to Avenir. We're going to change the leading right off the bat to 10. We're going to start with it at 10. We're going to remember that this was 8. The number was 8. Come on, computer, 8. And it was book italic, a book oblique. This was 9, I believe. And it was medium. And then all of this fabrication, no. This is the fabrication. Yeah, let's just say all that's the fabrication. You have to really know what you're talking about. We're going to make this 8, and we're going to make it book oblique, and then we're good to go. Okay? So that's the most important thing. If you can't remember how to look at the overset, just remember you have to be in the black arrow tool and put the black arrow tool over the little valve till it gets selected. You might have to select it again, and then you just pull over onto your pasteboard that doesn't print, and it will tell you what's going on. That's basically most of the issues that were happening on the line sheet assignment that needed to improve. Most important, scale, have that proportion wheel on, scale it this way. If you've somehow goofed, put the proportion control on and just click one of the numbers and it will snap it back into proportion. Okay, hope that helped.